after us, to ourselves as well, but we have an obligation to those who come after us that is fundamentally different from that which has been shouldered by any generation of human beings that has ever lived. That may sound overly dramatic, but I hope and pray that somehow I will be able to find the words to connect from my heart to yours the passion and the sense of urgency that I think is appropriate for all of us to feel where this challenge is concerned. So I want to start by showing you a few pictures of our beautiful planet, because it keeps the temperatures on our planet within comfortable boundaries that gave rise to human life and to everything that we know. But we are unique in the solar system in having that perfect balance. This is a tale of two planets. Earth and Venus are neighbors and are almost exactly the same size. And both Earth and Venus have a lot of carbon. But the difference, one of the prime differences is that here on Earth, the carbon that used to be in the atmosphere in abundance has mostly been pulled out of the atmosphere over hundreds of millions of years for a couple of reasons. The impacts are distributed globally, and so it masquerades as an abstraction. And the length of time between causes and consequences stretches out over a longer period than we're used to, so it gives us the illusion that we have the luxury of time.
To stay in the warm water and just boil over itself. You're saying that that's where we are. We're the frogs there. But is everybody, do we all know that we are that frog? Or are we pretending that the water is not warm enough?
Well, here's what the neuroscientists say about this, the specialists in the brain. We have an automatic ability to react instantly to some kinds of threats. And typically they are the threats that our ancestors survived. If a snake slithered down this aisle right now, you wouldn't have a debate about what shape the head was, what kind of snake it was. You would move. Because those in the distant past who didn't react that way are not our ancestors. and those that didn't.
It's critical, otherwise it is not. Your statement about population impinging negatively on the environment, how much of the impingement that on mitigating the circumstances that we now find ourselves insofar as the environment is concerned?
Well, I think that it's simply a statement of reality, that if there are 4 times as many people on this earth as there were 100 years ago, that's going to put a lot more pressure on the natural resource base and on the environment. I think that's just a fact. But I don't think that the population issue has to be fraught with tension and ideological argument. There was a time when people, I never did, but there was a time when people talked about population control and having kind of an imposed design. I'm totally against that. But here is what does make sense, and I alluded to this earlier. If we do things that we should be doing for other reasons anyway, there is a natural preference for smaller families. Let me see, what's the average family size in the Philippines now? How many average
We go from a high of 8 to a low of 4.
What would you say the average is now?
So everybody, I think maybe 5 or 6.
5 or 6? What was the average 2 generations ago?
Oh, higher, 7 or 8.
Okay, so the Philippines has begun this change already. In my country, my grandparents on both sides were in families with the 6 or 7 brothers and sisters. And it's now considered unusual to have four children, and the average in the U.S. is less than 2 children. But it should be a matter of choice. But here's what the research shows. When there is widespread education of girls and empowerment of women, and the availability of culturally acceptable forms of fertility management, and most important of all, high child survival rates, then this transition towards smaller families naturally takes place. And it is taking place in virtually every country in the world. So I don't see it as a matter of great things. I do think it's important for the world to have enough aid to developing countries that make it possible to continue the trend toward educating all girls. And I think it's only social justice to empower women so that they take part equally in the decision making in their communities, families, and society. And these other trends, I think that they're things we ought to be doing anyway.
Okay. Speaking of children, in your documentary you refer to the accident that touched the teacher with your 6-year-old son who almost lost his life.
Will have such a profound effect on all future generations. We, as human beings, have an instinct for self-preservation and survival. We care about ourselves. We care about those we love. We care about our family. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Where does the line of morality become a wall that stops that caring? Where does our obligation to avoid harm to others stop? Even in our own family. If we love our children and our grandchildren, what about those who come after? I believe that when we find ourselves with so much collective power in the world, with the entire global scientific community practically screaming from the rooftops, you are doing mortal grave damage. You can't continue this without condemning future generations to lives of steadily diminishing process. That makes it a moral issue. If we are in the process of doing harm to someone who is here, present, then it's obviously a moral issue that we have to stop. If we are in the process of doing mortal harm to those who are in the future, and the harm can be irreparable and irreparable, then that's a moral issue as well.
Okay. Finally, Mr. Gore, a newspaper, you've been in the news, you've seen for so many years, and you're vice president and a prominent political figure. And as an advocate, how challenging is it for you when you go around the world lecturing to